This to me, I feel like it's a complete toss-up, Shane. Florida at Kentucky. Interim coach for them Gators, Billy Gonzalez. Mark Stoops fighting for his job. This is a game, Shane, where the winner keeps their bowl hopes alive. I mean, technically the loser, bowl hopes still alive, but at 3-5, they're each at 3-5.
Yep.
I don't think the losers realistically got any shot at the postseason. So in that regard, this is a really big game. Florida has dominated the series, but not so fast, my friend. After 31 consecutive wins in a row, Kentucky has won 3 of the last 4 and 5 of the last 8. And, man, my first media days, Shade, it was, trying to remember the year, maybe like 2017.
Yeah.
Every room damn Stoops went into was, you think this is a year you could beat Florida?
Yeah.
But times they haven't changed, man. And I know Florida favored in this matchup by 3. Night game, SEC Network, 7:30 Eastern, 6:45 Central, over under 45.5. But I don't know. I mean, by the point spread, of course, this technically would be an upset if Kentucky won.
Yeah.
But I don't think if they won truly, I would view this as an upset. Do you?
I still think it would be an upset, but
Okay.
I
mean, the
even though all
football's
the
like
footballs-
Kentucky.
I know. But let's be realistic here. Everybody, except Kentucky fans, probably are expecting Florida to win this game. However, I think the injury reports is a telltale sign of, and I'm not saying the locker room, right? I'm not saying that some of these kids aren't injured, but I really felt like everything was given for that, world's largest outdoor cocktail party last week. And I saw some deflated fans. I saw some upset players here. And I wonder, you pair that with this injury report, which is outrageous compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a little bit of give up here, and because what are you fighting for? A bowl? Yeah, possibly, right? But you're looking at that schedule. There's not an easy path to a bowl game for either one of these football teams. Now, on the other side of the football field, Coach Stoops just got somebody fired, right? Coach Stoops went down there to Auburn, had a big win. I saw the excitement. I saw the buzz on the sideline. I feel like we got two different locker rooms this weekend, Mike. And I feel like Coach Stoops, I'm going to be bringing it again for another week, brother. Give me my lock. Kentucky 24, Florida 16. I think it's a dicey game. I don't think it's pretty, but I really love the development of this offense for Kentucky, and I still think the defense doesn't get enough respect. They're just tenacious enough. Look how many sacks they had last week. I feel like they're going to be all over DJ Lagway in this game, and I like Kentucky to pull off what quote unquote the upset.
Wait, so you confused the hell out of me because I said, well, it wouldn't really be an upset. And you said, or were you just trying to bait me there?
I was baiting you.
Okay.
Did it work?
Yeah.
We've been doing this so long, it's kind of hard to get you going, I'm trying to bob when you weave,
I got you. Because, I mean, and I hate even uttering this, Shane, because I've talked up DJ Lagway for so long.
Yeah.
I'm not even certain Florida has a quarterback edge in this matchup.
Ooh.
Given Cutter Boley.
Yeah.
Cutter Boley looked horrible last week.
Yeah, he did.
But against Tennessee, he looked like $1 million. Against Texas, where Texas has a really good defense, he outplayed Arch Manning.
Yep.
So I don't know. I may have even seen. Well, of course, DJ, he carved up Texas too. I mean, what the hell? Maybe Texas doesn't have a good defense after all. But point being, Shane, I don't think I can't even tell who's got the best quarterback in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll go a long way to determining who wins this football game. I think they're both good on the line of scrimmage. Kentucky, I think they're very, very, very underrated.
Yeah.
On the line of scrimmage. So I think this is a really good matchup in that regard. Seth McGowan, he underrated running back. Jaden Ball, Florida fans, of course, know all about him. But I don't know nationally if anybody knows about them because Florida's been such a disappointment, but these are two really good running backs. And you made a great point. I mean, looking up and down the injury list, I don't even know who DJ Lagway is going to be able to throw the football to. And I'm concerned. I'm very concerned, Shane.
Yeah.
If Florida gets down early, it's going to be cold. I'll go back, shout out Cousin James with the weather forecast. You can see them Gators huddled up against the heater, waiting for this game to end. You know what I mean? I think that's realistic, and just how much they got left in the tank after that tough rivalry loss to Georgia, 5th in a row. I got to do it, Shane. Got to do it. Give me CATS, cats, 24, Florida, 20. I think the Gators are dead in the water.
Damn. I thought this was going to be the one. I was like, I got Mike. He's going to pick Florida. He'll pump up Kentucky and then he'll pick Florida. Nope. Damn, we are on the same page.
At least I didn't lock it. You know?
Yeah. I think it'll be a good game. I really do. I know it's going to be nasty. I hope the fans show up, right? I feel like that could be a big thing too. If we got enough here, enough crowd noise, enough excitement, a buzz. I'm not saying that we're giving Stoops an extension at the end of this game, right? But, finally you have something to fight for. You've got a team that is moving in the right direction. You have a future that looks a little bit brighter than it did 4 weeks ago. So I feel like there's more on the line for Kentucky here than Florida. We know Florida's done, right? Billy's gone. We're going to go through a coaching search. They'll be fine. They'll be better next year. But Kentucky's one of those that's like been on life support for 2 seasons, and now we're finally catching a little fire at the right time, I feel. So
right. And let me know if you agree with this, Shane. I think if Kentucky loses this game, they'll be 3-6. Tennessee Tech, they could beat them. But at Vanderbilt, at Louisville, who's pretty solid this year, if Kentucky loses this game, they're going 4-8 at best.
Yep.
And Mark Stoops is not coming back.
Yes.
And if they win this one, I think there's a realistic shot they can get to 6. I'm not saying they will, but 4-8 and 6-6. I think at 6-6, I think there's a shot he comes back. I think at 4-8, I think there's no shot. So that, to me, it's fair to say this game may determine the fate of Mark Stoops.
Yeah, but I mean, I really don't see him getting rid of Stoops. I don't. I even 4 wins, I feel like they're, you know what? I ain't even talking about it. I just picked them to do the upset here, so no. Don't even drag me down there.
Also, Steven's going to educate you on who's winning this matchup. Florida at Kentucky. How about this one, Steven? These teams have gone back and forth over the years, and what a time to be alive for a Kentucky fan. You're actually winning this game sometimes. Florida, 3.5-point favorite, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on the SEC Network. Who do you like in this one?
Well, speaking of games that were hard to watch last week, and perhaps it wasn't the worst thing if your TV was caught up in the dispute of greedy people, was that Auburn and Kentucky rock fight, or maybe I should say pillow fight, considering where both teams are in the standings. I think this game won't match that, but I do think we're kind of at a points at a premium type of game here, Mike. The big storyline is bowl hopes here. I mean, Florida and Kentucky, obviously both trying to stay alive, finish the season on a high note. Florida is doable, I think, in a path to a bowl game because they could beat Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida State. I think for Kentucky, you're also trying to finish the season on a high note. Good win last week to go down to Auburn and get a victory. You get a Tennessee Tech team, I believe, next week. That's actually one of the better FCS teams. And so little danger.
They're undefeated.
Yeah, little danger spot here for Kentucky. Not necessarily a given. So there's still something to play for if you're both teams here. The first matchup I think we should talk about is the Kentucky offense against Florida's defense. Kentucky has scored 14 or fewer points in 4 of its 6 SEC games. So they won last week, but it was 10 points. So not a lot of inspiring ball right now from Kentucky's offense against Florida's defense, which, they're holding teams to about 3.5 yards per carry in SEC games, about 21 points a game. So for all the problems that Florida has, I think we know this defense is pretty solid. Cutter Boley also looking to get back on track after a couple picks last week. On the other side, Mike, I think a lot of intrigue from me here too. We were kind of joking about Eugene Wilson and being on the Prize Picks this week, but Florida being shorthanded at receiver. We saw Kentucky's defense, won the line of scrimmage against Auburn last week. Little different matchup against this Florida offensive line. Like to see DJ Lagway play a little bit better too. He's missed some throws and things like that. So it feels like if you just want to match up like last week's game and this week's game, you could see a lot of similarities, but I think you see one big difference in that Florida has, I'd say, a functioning offense to some extent, and DJ Lagway. And that's probably going to end up being the difference here. I do think there is one thing we probably should watch on Saturday night when it comes to the rushing attack here. Because in the wins that Florida has, they average over 175 yards a game on the ground. When they lose, it's under 100 yards. So in a series that has seen like, hey, the team that's more physical can run the ball and win the trenches, feels like that's something to watch. Because if you're Kentucky and you hold them under 100 yards, I think you feel good about pulling off the upset. So, Mike, do you think anything in there is crazy talk?
No, but it's just so hard to predict Florida given how inconsistent they've been. I mean, one week they look awful against Miami, then they turn around and look like $1 million beat Texas. They started fast against A&M, and then they kind of fell to pieces. I think they should have lost to Mississippi State, and I think you could say maybe they should have beat Georgia. I mean, I just don't know what to make of this team. They're up and down, up and down. They're in all these games. Aside from the Miami one was the only one that, even A&M, they were in it. I'm not saying they've had any business winning it or anything like that, but they're capable. If they play up to their potential, I think they could kill Kentucky. I think Kentucky's that bad. But we have seen Kentucky play with Texas, who's now we're sitting here saying, oh, man, are they a lock for the playoff? You know what I mean? Like, what was that, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? Kentucky should have beat Texas. So they're not awful by any means, but do you have any thoughts about the fact, I didn't think about this till we had Nick Roush on here, and of course he's always looking for a silver lining for how Kentucky's going to be better than they should, or an excuse to why the opponent will give in. But I do think it's worth noting, it's already into November. It's going to be cold. This game typically played annually, or it has been for decades, and it's almost always earlier in the season. So could you see a scenario where Florida gets down early and then they kind of, it's like, man, they're over there, they're huddling by the heaters, they're not used to this weather. Like I could see it snowballing on them. Could you at least see that?
Yeah, I could. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do wonder, anytime that you have an interim coach, and especially coming off an emotional rivalry game where you fell short, what do you have left in the tank at some point? And I think the other part of this is we've seen Kentucky play better at home. They almost beat Texas, like you said. They gave Ole Miss trouble, not so much Tennessee a few weeks ago. But it's like they've been pesky in Lexington, and they've won 3 out of the last 4 in the series, and a couple of those, of course, were in Lexington. So I do think, like you said, there's some factors that could make this kind of swing to Kentucky's way. It's like maybe a not so motivated Florida team coming off the loss to Georgia. It's a cold night in Lexington. Like, I could see all those factors kind of working in Kentucky's favor.
Yeah, no, I certainly could. But I think it was Bo in the comments here. He's like, well, we've kind of seen enough of DJ. I think we should know what we're getting out of him. But we haven't seen enough of Cutter yet to know what we're getting. To 1 week, he looks really good. Or last couple against Tennessee and Texas, I thought he looked very good. Last week against Auburn, I think he looked awful. So now that was on the road against a tough defense. So I don't know. I don't. If you were to tell me we're getting Texas Tennessee Cutter, I think I might lean Kentucky to win this game. If you told me we're getting Auburn Cutter, I think Florida might be my lock of the week. It may not be that simple, but that'll be a huge factor in this game, I think.
100%. I mean, I think just at the most kind of basic level, it does feel like if you're Kentucky with Seth McGowan, if you're Florida with Jaden Ball, we know both these teams are going to try to be physical. But when you get into those like passing downs, third downs, like who's going to be able to kind of execute, whether that's Lagway, maybe whether missing throws again or he's connecting on them. You also get, like you said, Cutter Boley's been up and down. So, yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of like basic, like which quarterback, but it does feel like, hey, if Kentucky gets the Cutter Boley that showed up and nearly beat Texas, I mean, this game is even more winnable than Texas. And if Lagway, the good Lagway, shows up, and I know he's been up and down, they still think some of this is injury, rust related. But maybe at some point we see some of those flashes like we saw late last year that showed, oh, yeah, like that guy's probably going to end up being a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm. And which offensive line and running game do you trust more in this matchup, Kentucky or Florida?
I trust the Florida offensive line. I think in Jaden Ball, probably a little bit more. Don't you agree?
I mean, you should.
Yeah.
You should. But that doesn't mean they're going to show up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the question with the motivation for Florida on the road in Lexington, coming off the loss to Georgia. Where is this team? Like with an interim coach, it's just there's a lot of factors here that scream, oh no, this is bad, on the road, interim coach. But yeah, I think maybe that is the question here is like, I think certainly the two quarterbacks are valuable. But which team is going to manage like staying out of like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6? I don't think if you're Kentucky, you want to live in that 3rd and 6. We saw this against like Texas. I thought they were doing a very good job of like, it's 3rd and 3, it's 3rd and 2. That's a place you can live and win if you're Kentucky. I think at 3rd and 7s, whichever team has to execute out of that. And the only reason I go there is because I don't think we're going to see a lot of points, and I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. So it feels like some of those small factors are really going to add up.
So let me ask you this, Steven. Do you think both these teams are at 3 and 5? I'm not saying that the winner, which, they get to 4 and 5. I'm not saying the winner is guaranteed a bowl game, but I would think the loser, I would guarantee they're not going to make a bowl game. Where do you stand on that?
That's 100% my take too. It's a little harder to get there with Kentucky because of how they played this season, and of course they got to play Louisville later in the year, and Louisville's in the top 15. It's a little harder to get there. But if Kentucky wins this game, they beat Tennessee Tech, you're sitting there at 5. You're at least giving yourself a fighting chance going into those last couple of games.
So, I mean, it may be which team wants to fight harder for their coach. You know what?
Yeah. And also the motivation, like we talked about for Florida, but also for Kentucky. You just had the big win over Auburn. What is the motivation still late in the season? Even though you beat Auburn, it really wasn't an overly impressive performance by any means when you win 10-3. So there's a lot of like motivational factors here that just kind of like I'd say almost like the X factor on Saturday night.
Right. So who you got winning?
Mike, I think a lower scoring game. The over-under is like 43. This might be a little bit too optimistic in terms of scoring, but I'm going to go Florida 24, take Kentucky 20. So taking the Gators to win on the road, largely because of DJ Lagway. I think in the difference of the game, two teams I think can get stops on defense. We'll see some Baugh and McGowan maybe have some moments. But 3 of Florida's last 4 games have been decided by 1 score. So why not another one on Saturday night?
I like that you said 24-20. And you said, well, that might be optimistic that things score this many.
Yeah. Probably should be like closer to like 20-17, 17-16 or something. Yeah.
Well, I think that's fair. That's where these programs are at this point in time. You know what?
Yeah, fighting for bowl eligibility on a cold November night in Lexington, low-scoring rock fight.